if he's brought that today, because that's what I think the fans in the chat were expecting with that 73% prediction. But this guy is also no slouch. Can we get an upset out of our blue Zerg in the bottom left? He is Vanya.
And spawning over in the top right, looking beautiful as always, it is Mousesport's HeRoMaRinE. I was just looking at the webcams at the start when they had them on the full screen, and it's like, you know, Vanya's a tall dude, but do you see how much taller Big Gabe is on his webcam? Man, he's just so big.
Yeah, it's unreal. They say that, you know, there was almost a disturbance, I think, at the Large Hadron Collider this year, where they said that they felt there was some unknown potential sixth force of nature that had been acting on their particle accelerator experiment to Muslim, but it turns out that it was actually just Big Gabe driving by. Just having such a mass, having such a power, it actually just had a gravitational impact on it. Turns out we're not falling into a black hole, thank God.
Thank goodness. It's just Big Gabe's power, just making the world a better place. Oxide to start things off here, though. That is usually a pretty damn decent Terra map, and Gabe, or rather, both these guys know one another. Like, Big Gabe's going to play it nice and safe here. Going to use the SCV that built the barracks to go for a scout. Going to go for the Rax gas build, just to make sure that his opponent isn't up to no good. A nice, respectable build by him.
Yeah, nothing super crazy. I think to start this series off, there's not necessarily a need to do anything crazy. Leveraging yourself against someone who could try to go for a quick attack, maybe, if you're playing too greedy, could be a really awful way to start the day off. So I think you kind of just come out with your best build, put your best foot forward. It's TVZ. I think we're all enjoy seeing a good old TVZ macro game. You know, get some Marines running around, get some lane bane, run bys, counter attacks, every which way. The good stuff to Muslim.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking back as well. Like, Vanya actually took a map off Clem. I remember it on Lightshade, and that was when it was like, Clem's the beast, like no Zerg can touch him, and then Vanya comes in with an attack that absolutely shouldn't have worked. It was just like Ling Bane, just had the massive opportune timing, and it was just like, wow, that shouldn't have done that, but it did. So like, yeah, Vanya can catch off absolutely some of the best of them. HeRoMaRiNE's going to go for the Big Gabe special here, where he gets 3 CCs on the go very, very quickly. I love it.
Yeah, delay in that second gas, and that's the superpowered economy build, right? If you especially go into Hellions as a follow-up and you just keep a little bit of map control, you're able to have awareness with the Reaper as to, am I going to be attacked? Was there an early Roach Warren? Are 40 Lings being made to try and flood me and overwhelm my Hellions? No? Well, then everything's totally fine, and I should be in a pretty good spot because I'm going to be super freaking rich, which is, you know, that's kind of where Big Gabe likes to be. He's a 3-base sort of player because, as we've talked about, those macro games where he can get into a flow, that's where he's going to be strongest. That's where we're going to see him really get pumping on all cylinders when that third is set up and he's ready to play that macro game and able to do what he wants to do. So I like it already. It's a good start. Oxide's a kind of weird map. There's a lot of choke points, which is going to favor the Terran. You've got a decent amount of airspace for the drops too, and the high ground with those rocks. Whether or not Vanya tries to break those early or not still remains to be seen. But this is definitely starting off the way I think HeRoMaRiNE wants it to.
Yeah, I mean, totally textbook. And that's definitely in HeRoMaRiNE's court so far. But we can never count Vanya out by any means. I love the fact that he's going for a 2-1-1. Full up after the 3cc. This obviously became far more popular over the last couple of years. The old school 2-1-1 kind of fell out of fashion until Maru's just like, you know what? Hold the phone. I'm going to do this and own Serral 3-0 with it and then win Aces ROG. But here, I like that Big Gabe's going for this. Like, this shows me that he wants to get in his opponent's face straight away. Not with like the weird whimsical attacks with like the Banshee, the Liberator, the Viking or anything like that. He's like, no. I'm going to get in your face with a lot of bio very quickly so I can keep tabs on your craziness.
Yeah, and that's what the Hellions do as well in this phase, right? Is keeping a little bit of information. Obviously, if you can keep the creep back, that's always going to be good. Deny the vision, deny the movement speed, the maneuverability of the Lings, and particularly the Queens, of course, as they really rely on that speed boost quite a bit. We have the medevac starting up as Stim finishes. Double Engineering Bay is going to come up in the wall on the natural. but he hasn't really seen anything to be worried about. And Vanya's just like, okay, I'm going to macro up. I'm going to power out as many drones as I can, since I don't think you're going to be aggressive with that third CC as early as you got it. And he does have his upgrade started a little bit earlier too. So I don't think that there's a whole lot to worry about on either side. We get to comfortably say that this should go into a at least reasonably normal mid-game phase. That Baneling nest is just now starting. So maybe Baneling speed won't be done super early, but I'm not sure that with how late the upgrades have coming in for HeRoMaRinE, that the Zerglings won't still be able to do a decent job defending.
Yeah, like Vanya's got, like, Zerg normally have a few options of what they can do. You know, there's either Lings or Roaches or Mutas and stuff, but with the Lings, it's like, okay, do I go for fast Baneling speed or do I go for upgrades? He's gone for the upgrades here, so if he survives this stage of the game, which he should do. Oh, bit of a mispick up there by HeRoMaRinE losing a few extra Marines. That's actually a big deal, because this build really revolves around tempo. But if Vanya just survives, which that's a good start, he's going to be in decent shape in the mid game, which is what he wants.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about what we just saw is the Hellions were actually tucked between the geysers in the third base. So HeRoMaRinE was kind of ready for a counterattack to hit him, but because the Hellions were left home, he didn't really have the ability to put on that pressure that he wants. And now the Banelings are done too. So a little bit of a somewhat missed opportunity out of simply just trying to make sure he didn't get backstabbed. And obviously, if the Hellions had gone out with those Marines and they didn't get a huge amount of damage, he could have lost his whole third base mineral line too. So it's an understandable kind of conservative play to take. But now Vanya has, as you were talking about, you know, he got those upgrades early. They're done. His Baneling speed's almost done. We have a ton of Lings, a ton of Banes. He's looking poised to try and jump on top of, I think, the next push that HeRoMaRinE's going to make. He's going to try to jump on top of this right now. He says, load up, get out of here. I'm not giving you a moment to set up or breathe. And, well, another army's going to move down the right side. Let's see if he can split these Lings and Banes well enough.
Yeah, I think they're both playing really well, actually, but the 1-1's coming online now for HeRoMaRinE, and those Banelings massively out of position. That Baneling speed not yet done. So when you want to be safe with that fast plus 1-1, the Baneling speed being so late does definitely bite you in the bum a little bit, and HeRoMaRinE is taking full advantage of that.
Yeah, he thankfully hasn't lost anything critical, though. I think this game, best way I can describe it, great catch on that drop, is both players are doing pretty well. I mean, we're seeing the movements out of Gabe. We're seeing him try clearing up the creep, keeping tabs on the bases, hitting on the right, hitting on the left. But Vanya has weathered the storm. He's feeling good. He's been able to get as many drones out early as he wanted. Transition into Hydralisks is coming. That Baneling speed is finally done. And these tanks get caught right as they're sieging. First one up front gets picked. Second one down to friendly fire. The Marines are getting grabbed, and that means this third siege tank to Muslim is going to get picked off as well. Getting rid of that splash damage is going to hurt for dealing with the Banes and these Hydralisks.
Oh, that was some nice Baneling kills, though, on the other side there. HeRoMaRinE, even though he lost the fight in the north, definitely took a nice trade in the south. I actually think he could have stayed for a bit longer there, you know, to deal a little bit more damage. But yeah, Vanya's been on top of his upgrades, man, because the 1-1 of him was a little bit ahead of HeRoMaRinE. But look at that, +2 armor almost finished here, whereas HeRoMaRinE kind of slipped up on those upgrades.
Huge. Vanya is playing this game like he has a checklist of things that he's like, if I'm going to beat HeRoMaRinE, these are the kinds of things I need to do. And it looks like he's hit all of them so far. He's gotten his expansions up early. We talked about the drone count looking good. The creep spread is decent enough, considering Gabe is trying his hardest to take care of that. A couple of these Hydras are going to get grabbed on the edge of the creep. But he's destroyed the rocks. He's created a big open space for these Hydras to be able to spread out and all shoot at once. But a lot of Marines are going to try to give chase because the creep is still not quite here yet, Benjamin.
I like that Vanya didn't engage right then, because it was right before his +2 armor finished. But if there is any time for him to go, it's now. Like, he hasn't been droning up like normal Zergs do. He's on 69. Like, his economy is technically a lot worse than HeRoMaRinE's. But HeRoMaRinE, does he know that? He knows who he's playing against, so he should have an idea. And yeah, look how safe HeRoMaRinE's playing. He realizes this isn't a normal game. He's not against a normal Zerg. He's against a guy that wants to be in your face and aggressive. But HeRoMaRinE's definitely being not super clean with his units.
Yeah, and when we talk about things about TVZ that open windows for the Terran player, it's that +3, right? Because his 2-2 is still just barely not done yet. But he can't go, Vanya rather, can't go straight into his extra upgrades either. So he wants to take advantage of this opportunity while he still can. Liberators are going to siege up the Hydras, known for being able to take those down not too difficultly. That Planetary's not ready yet, so if he can kill the army, maybe he can focus on that. But the Marines pushing up the ramp against just Hydras with siege tank support is going to be enough. Vanya trying to get back to creep so he can disengage as Lynx get a counterattack onto that third base. One siege tank picked off. Baneling's now going to be running to catch the intercepting Marines and not able to reach the SCVs. Good target fire by HeRoMaRinE with the final siege tank in that third to defend his workers.
Yeah, I was just about to say that tank came in clutch. I was like, oh, the SCVs aren't running away, and then they all popped. I was like, wow, okay. That was a very nice reaction there by HeRoMaRinE, and very clutch. Vanya did drone up a little bit during that, but 78 drones against 78 SCVs. That's not the kind of situation you want to be in if you're trading like this, because we look at the resources lost tab. Vanya's not been trading super well, which is normal for a Zerg, but it's normal for a Zerg if you're way ahead in economy, which he hasn't been.
And he's going to try and catch these bio units pushing up towards. It's tough because those Hydras do benefit so much from having that creep, because you're a little bit fragile, a little bit flimsy when they get caught by those Marines out off creep like we saw earlier. So you're really trying to play around pushing this creep out, and HeRoMaRiNE's done a really good job of keeping it on Vanya's side of the map. It hasn't completely overrun him. It wasn't able to get on top of that ramp that we were discussing earlier where that big fight took place. And as HeRoMaRiNE's tank count goes up, I think you get a little bit increasingly nervous. The Hive is ready though, so as lurkers come out, big thing you're looking for is that range upgrade. You want to get that 10 range on the lurkers to really help zone away these bio units, but it's kind of just a weather the storm situation once again for Vanya until those Hive upgrades are done for the lurkers, at which point, and adrenal glands too, let's not forget that. That's when things are going to start to turn around again.
Yeah, Vanya is like, you know what? I don't like fighting against this army of you. I'm going to try and cause chaos elsewhere, which I like by him. I like the idea of buying time for those big upgrades to come online for those lurkers. But HeRoMaRinE, he's not paying too much wrong attention here. And he's going full late game here with the ghosts and stuff. And I like the way that both of them are playing. They're both playing the way that I expected them to, but just both doing it nicely. That was a nice little trade for HeRoMaRinE.
Yeah, grabbing a lurker on the way down while he gets rid of some of these creep tumors is a big play. These lurkers are going to siege outside to open the door on these supply depots. Siege tank, though, I mean, we talk about range. Siege tank's still going to be the king on the ground with that. So if he could get the depot open and flood in, that would be nice. But here we have HeRoMaRinE pushing into that left side expansion. 3 lurkers. Again, can't really hit the Marines up on this top left side of the base. They're going to reposition. There's the blinding cloud as the Vipers are going to start coming out. And we know those can be absolutely devastating at removing the medevacs from the field of play with either the abduct into the Hydras or that parasitic bomb, but also blinding cloud on the siege tanks is going to make dealing with the lurkers a lot harder. So these ghosts that you mentioned, Ben, are going to become even more important as this game progresses.
Oh, certainly. HeRoMaRiNE's done a really good job of getting rid of that creep spread in the middle. But this army on the right side from Vanya has definitely split Big Gabe's attention quite a bit, even taking down that center tower that Big Gabe keeps on putting in that weird-ass spot. But Vanya's trying to break out here. I'm not sure this is the fight he's super looking for. Does kind of get a bit of a cleanup here, but not without a cost.
I got an EMP, too, on that Viper when it was on its way in, so worth pointing out, helps with holding that position down, but the lurkers do now have that range upgrade. So if the ghost tries to just walk forward and snipe it, it can attack and then cancel that snipe, as it's no longer going to have the range advantage, and this turns it into much more of a dance. And you have to consider whether you're going to be trying to add extra, or I guess high ground, that will also do the job. You do need vision to attack things. It gets a snipe on the lurker behind that mineral line, gets the one on top of the ramp as well. And HeRoMaRiNE's finally able to get himself a little bit of breathing room. Vanya bringing the pressure, bringing the heat to Muslim.
Absolutely. Like this is cool because I expected it to. I haven't seen Vanya get to this stage, but now he has a super economy. Now he's up to 90 drones. Now he can trade real crazy. He's got 10 lurkers out with 8 more on the way. Those are scary ass numbers that HeRoMaRinE has to deal with now.
Yeah, these lurkers are all going to be pushing in up towards this 4th base in the northwest. There is a planetary there, but he's looking to just take down this army. And of course, the lurkers can siege that down. But he gets hit from all angles by the bio forces, which is going to be, I mean, the best possible scenario for Big Gabe, as he's going to snipe 2 more of the lurkers as they make their way towards that northwest base. Siege tanks in the northeast, however, blowing each other up as these things get on top of them. That planetary smashed down. And well, be careful with your ghosts out like this. The last thing you want is for all these expensive units to get caught.
Absolutely, but these guys, man, they're freaking James Bond ghosts over here, getting quite a few lurkers, not losing any of them as well, and getting out of there. And we got to remember, this is Oxide. Like, if this gets to a split map, Vanya has every base that really belongs to him. Like, if he starts expanding across the other side of the map, those are ridiculously hard to keep because they are absolutely in the Terran's quadrant of the map. And that's when it can get to a situation where it comes down to efficiency. And Vanya doesn't want that to be the case at all in this game.
No, I mean, you talk about the units that are supposed to be efficient for Vanya, it's the lurkers, and he really hasn't been able to maintain that big lurker count, having to replace them so often. There's the blinding cloud onto that bio, but it all gets picked up and the anti-air response is not there. However, he still can't drop on top of that army. So Vanya's going to be able to siege up on this base, deny this economy. At the very least, he mined most of it out, but he still needs to get rid of these lurkers on his ramp. They actually do reach that siege tank too. So suddenly HeRoMaRinE finds himself a little bit boxed into Muslim.
He certainly does, and does he have enough scans to deal with this? I mean, he is scanning, but he ran all these ghosts very far forward, and that's a lot of AoE damage, but there is enough HeRoMaRinE at the top of this ramp, and he took out a base of Vanya in the meantime. And it's not as if Vanya's super rich mineral-wise. I mean, I know he's got a lot of gas, but boy, oh boy, this is a scrappy one between these two again.
Yeah, this is, well, talk about a hell of a game. You only get one, if we're getting one TVC in Europe today, Benjamin, this is, I'm glad it's this one because it's been absolutely bonkers. 5 more lurkers are going to get added, and that ghost control really good. We talk about the snipes getting canceled by the attacks. Just use every ghost. They can't hit all of them at once, can they? And that's how he's able to make that defense happen. But the Ling counter attack, he's really going to punish HeRoMaRinE for stepping out now. That carefully crafted defense that he had with all those walls, the sensor towers, the tanks, it's all gone. And he's just got his SCVs running for their lives out of that natural.
Yeah, and Vanya, this is really smart by him. Like, he's buying so much time and just being annoying. He knows that economically, HeRoMaRiNE's really wounded. Oh, going for a fight over here. Doesn't have an overseer with this army, though, so will have to go home, and HeRoMaRiNE takes a nice, decisive fight there. Vanya has to be careful, man. Like, he doesn't have the economy to do this.
No, I mean, neither player can really afford to throw away their big money units at this rate. HeRoMaRiNE very low on the mineral count. All his ghosts getting surrounded, just barely able to slip out a little bit. Now the Overseer's joining the fight again, picking off all these ghosts. Be absolutely devastating, but the Marine reinforcements are here with the rest of the medevacs, and the Queens up front starting to take a bit of a beating. 4 more lurkers are on the way, but there's only 1 up right now. So there's a big window for some huge damage if Gabe can get on top of those morphing cocoons.
Ah, he gets the 1 lurker that is there, and this is a lot of firepower here, and I think he's busted him. And I mean, holy crap, that got real close there, and GG, HeRoMaRinE takes the first game.
What a game. What a game 1, Benjamin. Oh my goodness. We got exactly what we're looking for. Is that's how I'm going to say. I'll speak for everybody on that. When you watch TVZ, I think those are exactly the kinds of games that you're looking for. Really intense. We see that early pressure. We see a little bit of the back and forth. Both players kind of gentleman's handshake on doing the macro game, but then we get to see, okay, I'm going to bring these Hydras to your base nonstop. I'm going to burrow all my lurkers in the face of your army. And HeRoMaRinE saying, I'm not scared to have 13 ghosts all in a tight choke point to try and snipe these lurkers out of my own base. I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to make that happen. And it pays off in a huge way. Vanya was never really able to maintain that lurker count. Every time he got them up, they were all being traded. HeRoMaRinE did a really good job of making sure that none of those lurkers escaped almost any of those fights.
Yeah, it's so easy for us to be like, well, there was one moment in that game where I was like, he's got 10 lurkers out, making 8 more. And he ran with the 10 that he had, and then HeRoMaRinE got this big flank going on, but it wasn't as if he cleaned it up without a cost. It definitely cost him a lot. But if those 8 lurkers came in with the 10, like, I really think Vanya would have probably just ran away with that game. Like, I don't know how Gabe would have stopped that. So I think Vanya, sometimes, you know, you got to take that gear out of 6 and drop it down a little bit and just give yourself a moment of calm. But he didn't do that, and he just went along with it. And I think that is maybe when the game got a little bit out of his grasp and he allowed HeRoMaRinE back into it. But right until that final moment, when all those like 20 ghosts or something were alone, I was like, Gabe, no medevac with these. Like, I started, you know, my toes started creasing up a little bit. My butt got a little bit tight, and I was like, oh my goodness. But I walked away with it. And anyhow, speaking of the man, spotting over in the top right, representing Mouse Sports on 2K Atmosphere, it is HeRoMaRinE.
It's a terrifying visual, Ben. I'm just glad you're okay. In the bottom left, we have the blue Zerg player breaking out them Hydras and lurkers. He's Vanya.
Yeah, I'm still impressed by that that last like minute of that game, because I was like, oh, Gabe's getting himself like this is bad. Vanya's doing a lot of stuff, but oh boy, those ghosts, man, they came in proper clutch there. And
when he dived, I mean, he dived those morphing lurkers right at the final moment, and I was thinking the exact same thing as you. I'm just absolutely sweating bullets. But not only does he get that, he focuses the one lurker that was there. And I mean, if those lurkers had finished, if he had been able to buy himself an extra 10 seconds, then, you know, I don't think he can just charge straight into 5 lurkers with pure marine like that. And suddenly maybe the game starts to swing again. Maybe we go for another 10 minutes, maybe another 20 minutes, Ben, but I'm okay with going into game 2 here. As long as we get a little bit more of that, I am more than happy.
Yeah, HeRoMaRiNE's mixing it up here. He's going for a reactor first. And I like that. Like, HeRoMaRiNE is, he's actually one of the Terrans that in TVZ, like I watch Clem, and Clem will do a lot of the 3CC shenanigans with the Reaper first and stuff, and very normal follow-ups, be it like a 2-on-1 or Starport kind of thing. But Gabe, he'll do these slightly more kooky builds where he'll get like 8 Marines in a medevac and then Hellions elsewhere, and just being annoying. It can also be like 6 Marines in a Widowmine, bringing back these old school builds, but it definitely makes the Zerg's life a little bit harder when you are up against a Terran that has a slightly wider array of tricks up his sleeve, and yeah, even a second gas starting pretty damn early as well for HeRoMaRiNE.
Yeah, so not exactly going into that the turbo 3cc. It could still get a fast third command center, but you're right, getting that extra gas. Maybe we're going to have a little starport shenanigans, perhaps a cheeky Raven or a Banshee, you think, Ben?
I think it's going to be a medevac, and I think it's going to be like just a medevac with Marines out, just either sniping overlords. You can get into the main base, and it gives yourself a little bit of a time, because players are getting so good these days, Nate. Like, if you're just focusing on defending one spot against one army, of course you can do it. But when it gets to like 2 spots, it's a little bit trickier. Then 3 spots, that's where it's like, oh my goodness, you're big Gabe. So like he's going to be whipping out quite a few Hellions here as well. I can't see it being anything but the medevac in this situation. Oh, Roach Warren on the way for Vanya.
Oh, okay. And that little back of the natural here. So definitely shaking it up a little bit on both ends. Hellions come out. It's going to see that slowling roasted out. Speed is almost done. But if these Hellions go straight through to the natural, they would see it. But Gabe's he's not really been the guy that we've been seeing throwing the Hellions away, right? So I'm not sure that he's going to get that scout until he moves with that medevac, as you were saying. And that is the choice as it's going to come out. I guess it makes sense, right? With the early reactor, he's got a lot of Marines to make use of this too.
Yeah. It all comes down to Gabe scouting this. When does Vanya reveal it? Because this is going to be a super all-in from Vanya. And like, if you ask me what Zerg is similar to Vanya, I'd be like, he's a mini laser in a lot of ways. Like, he likes his timings. Now, HeRoMaRiNE does have these Marines with the medevac on the field, which is nice for him. He's keeping a few Hellions back at home as well. But he absolutely needs to know what he's up against, because he's going to need a lot of units very, very quickly.
Yes, indeed. A couple of Lings actually do make a little run by that wall. Not done. Of course, there are some Hellions, but if you're able to get that surround early enough, able to pick one off, every single kill here is big, because I'm under the assumption that he's going to rally these roaches across and then flood Lings as much as he can behind it. But the Marines are at the third, and there's nothing really there. There's really not a lot at the natural either, so the Hellions can still get a bunch of drones. But the problem is that all of his units that can fight, for the most part, are in Vanya's base. SCVs are coming out in fisticuffs against the Ling Roach. To Muslim, that is not how you're going to defend this attack.
Not at all. HeRoMaRiNE is in a lot of trouble. I know he's dealing with the economy of Vanya quite well. Look at his minerals as well. He's up to 900 minerals here. Big Gabe. This feels like he just was not prepared whatsoever. Vanya sneaked down the middle of the map, the most direct path, without Gabe noticing. And this has absolutely caught him off guard.
Yeah, he's getting on top of where the production is, going for those workers. A Banshee is being made. He's not going to try to kill the starport. Banshee will take forever to kill all of this anyway. But as soon as the tank pops out, it should get killed too. So now you're just in this awful position where you're like, okay, maybe move your workers between your bases back and forth. Your Liberator is shooting overlords that are in the air. Maybe not the highest value that you're going to get. And there's the GG. Vanya able to strike back and take a map against Big Gabe.
Yeah, I think Gabe is kind of lucky that this isn't 2-0 for Vanya, honestly. Like, because that Oxide game, I think Vanya was very close to running away with it. Whereas this game, like Gabe, he messed up quite a bit. Like that Roach attack, like seeing the early slow Ling, that should already be like, this is slow Ling running across the map at 3:40. What have you used the gas on? And it's not like a tell that is like, oh, obviously it's this, but to not have anything on the most direct path to your base, that's definitely an error. And then he went up to like 1,000 minerals while being on 2 bases and getting all in. Yeah, you can't allow that to happen against Vanya. And it definitely looks like he's not quite as clean as the normal Gabe, but I hope he steps it up here on Romanticide.
Yeah, that's a very tough way to take it too, because he had the Marines out front, right, with the Hellions at a kind of early phase before that attack really hit. And that was when the Lings first went for that natural, but he had to look back, defend against that, and then when he looked back at his army, he's like, okay, well now I'm going to split everything up again. Hellions will go to the natural, Marine drop will go to the third. There's nothing at the third. There's nothing at the natural. Yeah, you're going to kill some drones, but yeah, as you were saying, I mean, he just kind of A-clicked some of those SCVs. Like, I'll kill a couple of these Lings. There's not that many. And then 9 Roaches are there, and then Ravagers. And, well, you're not going to get a whole lot done in that position, unfortunately, as we go to Romanticide to decide who will win this TVZ. Happy to be right about the potential 2-1 score here, whichever way it goes, Ben. I do like it when we don't just have 2-0s all day in the early stages of these tournaments.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like, even though I did think HeRoMaRinE was the big favorite, because like HeRoMaRinE in my head, you know, when you play Tony Hawk's and all these characters have these like stats, right? It's like, this guy's 9 out of 10 in the air, this guy's 7
now
out
you're
of 10.
speaking my language.
Yeah. Like, I feel that Gabe is like 9.5s across the board, like entirely. Like, he's so solid.
He's the Darth Maul in what Pro Skater 3. Yeah, he has the lightsaber. He just kind of floats around. He can't mess up any of his tricks, and he can just fly if you miss the rail. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. But in that game, he wasn't bulletproof, and like the game one as well. Like, it was really damn close. It really feels like this style of Vanya that's so erratic is really messing up. And speaking of the Russian spawning in the bottom right, it is Vanya.
And his opponent spawning in the northwest position as the red Terran player. He is HeRoMaRiNE.
Yeah, of all Zergs that give him trouble, it's obviously Cyril and Reynar, but he usually does very well against like the Elazers of the world, and he doesn't do too bad against like the Lambos either. But Vanya, this guy that's just pure crazy and doing his own thing a little bit, for some reason, it just catches HeRoMaRiNE a little bit off guard. And I mean, there was one moment as well, you know, when all the SCVs ran out to chase those Lings and they're getting killed by Roaches like way outside his base, and the Liberator just keeps on flying over. He felt very distracted.
Yeah, it really did, right? Because that Liberator came out pretty early in the midst of all of that chaos, and all it ever really ended up doing was just shooting Overlords. So you ask yourself, well, what if you siege the Liberator on the main base ramp? You know, what if you sieged it at the third, or at the natural, wall? Like, okay, Ravagers can kind of bust it down, but that's going to take a little bit of time, you know, and I think in those moments, every second is so valuable because you're trying to do so many things at once. And that's when that breakdown can happen, because I think when we talk about the strengths of the players, you know, Vanya should be trying to keep these games a little bit on the shorter end. And HeRoMaRiNE, I think we all saw from that first map, he's obviously very comfortable in the long games. That was still a very intense one. It was still open to either side, but we know that he has the ability to take his ghosts and get those big flanks, right, on the lurkers that are coming around the side. It's not like those units all absolutely ravaged him or rolled him over. He knows what to do, and he knows how to control his forces. He just likes to get set up first. And if Vanya doesn't let him get set up super comfortably, that's where we see the breakdown start. And that's why we're here in game 3.
Definitely is. HeRoMaRiNE, Romanticide. He's going for the 3cc build with the 1 gas, which on this map, I think, is a great choice. You see players like Clem really like to do the 3cc 2-on-1 approach. He's going to go for the starport, though. Like, if there's any build that I like to think is the Gabe build, it's where he goes for Cloak Banshees while doing this. I feel it's his kind of thing. It can get him set up on 3 bases also well. Like, you get the Clems of the world that are so good at sniping the Banelings in these little skirmishes, but HeRoMaRine's good at getting his economy up and going, like quicker than anybody else. And I feel that starport stuff will help him do that.
Yeah, it makes me think about, I love that you made the Tony Hawk reference earlier, but I'm going to double down on that and say it's like any game where you can kind of like put points into attributes, but you're like, but if you're HeRoMaRiNE, your base attributes for your macro game and the economy game is a lot higher. Sometimes it's better to just double down on what you're already good at instead of trying to, instead of maybe be a 9 or 8 in 1 or 2 stats instead of being 5 at everything. You know what I mean, Ben? And that's where we see him kind of shine. If he can force it into that macro game and not get these kind of cheeky, scrappy early games, then we see him be real strong. So I'm happy to have him going back into that big economic play, kind of put the ball in Vanya's court. If you want to try to all in me, sure, I'll just defend this like I would normally do in any other game. I'm not going to throw everything at you and leave the door wide open behind me.
Yeah, and here we have the Viking, which it isn't into the Liberator afterwards, which, that's a little curious. He's skipped that entirely. He's going straight into the 3 racks afterwards, which is, it's a good opening. He's very good with his bio, and this was the map where he really went Super Saiyan against Reyna at the Asus ROG. And this is kind of HeRoMaRiNE's bread and butter, man. He gets to snipe overlords to make sure he's not up against something weird like a Nidus, gets to scout with it a little bit too, be a little bit cheeky. Also opens up that airspace for drops later on.
Oh yeah, and this map is amazing for it, right? I think if you're gonna get a Viking to clear space out, this is the map you want to do it on. You have big air pathways to the main from both directions. The natural, the third, both have huge exposure to the air spots. So if you can have those cleared out, move your medevacs or liberators in the mid-late game over there, that's always going to give you something to pressure Zerg with. You're not really playing around a very limited space where those queens can easily zone you out. Vanya's going to have to work for it on the air defense with those, and that's perhaps why he takes that front third base. Is he's just like, okay, just keep it into that more open space, not as much air maneuverability. It also helps get that creep out towards the middle of the map a little bit faster. Worth pointing out, he had Gabe did a really good job of keeping the creep away in that first game. He was never able to get that torrential downpour all over the 4th and the 5th.
Yeah, definitely. This game, though, like Vanya, or rather HeRoMaRiNE, he's very content with sitting. Like, not anything has really moved out. It's just 4 Hellions. It wasn't 6 or 8 or anything like that. He hasn't gone for Vanya's economy, which is interesting because I really feel that was where he was going wrong against Reyna, because he started off 2-0 down against Reyna, but then he just came alive and started being super in-your-face aggressive, and that's where he did the reverse sweep. And on a player like Reyna, that's really damn hard to do. Because as soon as you start trying to play the greed game, even though we've talked about HeRoMaRiNE being a really good 3-base Terran, you still have to abide by the laws of TVZ, where you have to slow down your opponent a little bit. Leaving him to do what he wants, that can get messy.
It's a very dangerous game to play, because as we saw in that first map, even when Vanya was mostly just chilling, he was able to keep pace. Yeah, and that's an innate strength of Zerg, right? If they don't have to spend their larva on combat units because you're not attacking them, they can power out that economy and catch up to you on that 3cc opening that you're trying to go for. And he's still got those upgrades a couple seconds ahead. So HeRoMaRiNE doesn't get to have a timing where he's like, oh yeah, I've got my 1-1 and my stim, my combat shields. I've got a huge advantage right now. I'm going to push it. The second set of medevacs moving out is perhaps going to be him trying to do that with the tanks and maybe use the mineral gap. He has creep on the other side of it. So I'm mostly curious as to where he's going to try and bring this over, if it's all just going to go to the main.
I like the positioning of that tank on the low ground, especially. Dealing with that Beautiful. Is going to be ridiculously hard. And Vanya, like, he has to respect the fact that he's got no vision in the air as well. Still not speed banes. He did go for the very fast upgrades here, but looked like Big Gabe missed the pickup there a little bit, and the tank on the high ground does get picked off, but that little boy on the low ground going in strong.
Yeah, that's a really dirty tank spot. Not a lot of surface area available to hit it. One of those Marines is actually kind of safely tucked behind it too, so not too much to worry about. The lurker den is just starting. There's a lot of banes, a lot of lings. Speed isn't ready yet though. If he gets a center mass shot, well, could be dirty. Tank's not focusing. There's one. A lot of these banelings getting blown up. Wow, that's okay. I think that's got a little bit more towards what you're looking for, because there's still a lot of Marines alive. And Gabe's got another attack headed towards the northeast. So He's got to deal with the drop in the main. He's got to deal with these Marines and Hellions over here. The Baneling count's been trimmed. Hydras are just now starting in production. To Muslim, does Vanya have enough to slow this pressure down from HeRoMaRinE?
I don't think he does. I mean, Big Gabe, he's 30 supply ahead right now. That army in the north doesn't yet have medevacs, and Big Gabe does get on out here. But the top army is still a ridiculously strong army, and upgrade-wise, Vanya isn't ahead right now, but if he gets a nice connection here with the Banelings, which Big Gabe does get on out of there, but he's not going to slow down anytime soon. I see that big blob of red moving out of his fourth base as well, which he set up behind all of this. So Big Gabe, he's powered up, and now he's doing what he loves to do.
When we talk about the strategy, when we say, okay, Gabe likes to take it slow, he likes to chill, and then just power up that economy, and then just bring a never-ending movement out on the map. This is what we're talking about. He's got these mines as well. We talk about the armory so that they'll stay visible. They're all going to die before they can burrow because it's a little bit tough on the positioning there. And the lurkers are here and ready. He's just going to scan and stem forward onto them. He's going to try and take out all of the lurkers at this third base and continue to press his advantage while a drop unloads inside of the main. And he does not have an answer for that. One of those lurkers living with like 2 hit points, by the way, just barely alive for Vanya, but he doesn't have anything in the main to defend against these Marines. A couple of Lings will stream in, but the drones to Muslim exposed, and 9 of them getting gunned down before the Banelings can push the drop away.
Yeah, HeRoMaRiNE's choice to pounce on those lurkers right then was really ballsy. If they were like upgraded lurkers with a 10 range, it would have went really bad. I think he knew that there was no hive. I don't know whether he spotted it earlier or just knew his opponent's timings, but it was absolutely a great choice. Because, I mean, trading out Marines for lurkers, you absolutely would love to do that any day of the week. And now, Vanya's reset, man. Like, he's got 2 lurkers out. Yes, he's making more, but HeRoMaRinE, he's just going with the tempo of the game, and he just wants to keep Vanya down in the Stone Age.
Yes, he does. Bane's coming down the ramp, trying to get on top of the bio. The Hydralisks in the backline are at least able to take a few of the medevacs here. And once again, it kind of turns into that waiting game we talked about in game 1, except he doesn't really have the ability to get out on the map as easily. There's no creep really pushing in that southwest area. So the lurkers, they need that range upgrade. It's almost done. That's a really great one for fighting. But when you're trying to maneuver around and do the sort of aggressive plays that he was getting in that first map, you also need to get the adaptive talons. You need to have that burrow speed upgrade for the lurkers, and that's just now starting. So you still maybe don't want to be too crazy with how adventurously you're going to move them out. I mean, 6 lurkers over here is a lot to invest into this assault. If this all gets picked off without killing a lot, it's going to hurt Vanya quite a bit. But he's hoping to pull HeRoMaRiNE's forces back and give himself that breathing room.
I think Vanya's actually doing really well. Like, yeah, he's going to lose that base on the far right to this drop, which HeRoMaRinE does deal with, which is very nice, cancels it, but dealing a little bit of counter damage. I mean, that's what Vanya wants to do. That drop behind the third, though, or rather the fourth, is cool, and HeRoMaRiNE's attacking the third as well at the same time, and that attack in the north from Vanya, it's not doing anything right now. It could have been doing something, but the chaos and the speed that HeRoMaRiNE's playing at is wild.
Yeah, and Vanya is starting to reach that point now where he can leverage a little bit more of that power. He has the burrow upgrade finishing for the lurkers, can do a little bit more of that quick maneuvering around, shouldn't be as hard to get pulled. But when we talk about what makes this map good for Terran and these drop locations, there's not a whole lot he can do to block this. There's just big open space behind that third and that main and the natural. So he's just able to constantly hit them from all possible directions, and that makes it so difficult for Vanya to move out. But as you said, he's been playing a great game. He's been keeping himself up in the supply. Doesn't really have that big bank. Doesn't really have that big, scary Zerg economy that you typically want to see in that late game. And he's not even been able to get his own half of the map covered in creep this time. HeRoMaRiNE's really kept his foot down on the pedal.
And I think what's going to bite Vanya in the butt here really hard. It's 3-3 finishing up for HeRoMaRinE. These lurkers don't even have 1 attack upgrade, and they're good. And he's got a lot of lurkers out. He really wants to go for a big bust here, like a do or die thing, which HeRoMaRinE, he has to know. He has to buy time against this. Because, yeah, I think Vanya is putting all his eggs in one basket. He wants to get going. He wants to get going with 22 lurkers, which is what he has out. That's actually a really scary number.
Yeah, indeed. As he's got this nuts drop again inside of that main base. And I love what you're talking about it. He's been building 2 siege tanks at a time, getting into the Liberators. He's got sensor towers out the wazoo. And I think also very important to point out again, Benjamin, like you were just saying, no attack upgrades on those lurkers. So the damage they're doing is a little bit limited. Of course, the area of effect is still nice, but he's got to get that +3 carapace now. And this is where if you're HeRoMaRiNE, you're like, okay, maybe you feel some pressure to do something with the upgrade lead before it goes away. But also maybe you're happy with the number of bases you have, building a bank, getting a ton of ghosts, and just sort of battening down the hatches, as it were, so that you could deal with some of these big counterplays, thinking about the ways those backstabs went in game one, maybe put a couple more tanks in a certain spot or two, or a few more depots in front of them, whatever it is. But that's a hell of a lot of lurkers that are moving towards that west side expansion. Is Vanya going to be able to start wrestling control back here as he gets on top of this base? That planetary is not going to last very long to Muslim. Liberators sieging over the army. The Hydralisks are more than well positioned enough to take care of them, and he's taken the high ground too with this spot. So HeRoMaRiNE suddenly put in a very awkward place as that momentum he was building up gets shut down a little bit. That's Vanya with a nice 40 supply lead. Not that HeRoMaRiNE doesn't have money, not that he doesn't have plenty of production structures to replace those forces with, but this is what Vanya was waiting for. A huge lurker mass. I think, when I think about game one, though, I'm like, just don't lose all of them in this push.
No, certainly. Like, keep them all together and keep on rolling, and that's exactly what he's doing right now. And HeRoMaRiNE is going to lose another base, and he's just slowly losing out bases. I know he has a lot of orbitals about, which is good for him, but Vanya's army, like, lurkers are a good unit, Nate. Like, lurkers are really damn good. Beating that down is going to take a long time for HeRoMaRiNE.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that felt like what kind of hurt the lurkers earlier was just that he had spread them out a lot, but he was very, very anxious, it almost felt, to kind of seal the deal with those lurker pushes, running them into the tanks, running them into the planetaries. But if he can bring them back, maybe get a couple transfuses on some of these weak boys, you can still kind of get that war of attrition. If he's feeling comfortable enough to try to end it, I do think that's where the throw can happen, right? Because the Liberators are still dangerous. He's still shaving off a bit of the fat on this army as it makes its way out. And, well, I think the only thing that he really just is probably happy about is that there's only 6 ghosts. Who's not really able to make that big fat ghost transition. But here's the lurkers all right in his face again. But 4 Liberators are going to take out a huge amount of them. This is exactly what I was talking about to Muslim. The lurkers get trimmed down to just 6 once again.
It really feels like Vanya doesn't know how to chill, man, because he was in a good position there, but running into that many Liberators, tanks, ghosts, and bio, and just, yeah, he really, I don't know what he was hoping for there. That was a very, very wishful thinking, to say the least.
Yeah, he really likes trying to just keep putting these lurkers in the opponent's face without bringing the rest of everything over. And HeRoMaRiNE, I mean, when you're playing Terran, as long as you've got Marines in general, you can kind of deal with everything this comp has when the lurkers aren't in your face. You can kind of deal with the Hydralisks without too much trouble if you can get on them away from the lurkers. You can deal with the Zerglings if you get on them away from the lurkers. The Vipers aren't a huge threat. So it's just about keeping him from being able to siege up on you. I definitely don't think he was ready for the 20 lurkers that burrowed at his 5th base. But now that lurker count's been trimmed so much, and that lurker den was killed earlier, he's only just now getting it finished again. So the opportunity to even try to replace them is still pretty far away for our Zerg player.
Yeah, there's only 1 Viper out. Like, I was looking at this and I'm like, tanks, Liberators, they kind of get countered by Vipers, and there's barely any on the field. And Vanya, look at his army. His army sucks against this, and he's trying to do a counterattack, but that is a PF. Needs to repair it, though, does HeRoMaRiNE. Come on, HeRoMaRiNE. Come on, repair it. Oh my goodness. Wow, that was so close. I mean, HeRoMaRiNE isn't playing perfect, but I think it's enough this game.
Yeah, the lurkers, how similar was this? Is he's making a big push on an expansion that has to be defended as the lurkers are finishing. And this time those lurkers are going to finish, but unlike last time, there's a ton of Liberators here that are complementing this. And just like you said, those Vipers are super important. He's going to yank one of them. When you have to rebuild these lurkers constantly, it's hard to get that money to build all those Vipers. So drones are starting to go down. The lurkers do push forward into the spot. They're going to start to get trimmed down as well by the Liberators. There's a ton of tanks, ton of ghosts. Snipe, snipe, pew, pew. All of the lurkers are dead. 60 supply gap right now in favor of the Terran player. That +2 range not done. GG's calling. Big Gabe takes it 2-1.
Wasn't easy, man.